Pretend you're our father. That was what 4 6-year-old girls whispered to a single dad sitting alone with a cup of cold tea in one of Seattle's most expensive hotels. Ethan Mercer had spent years believing his life was simple. Fix broken elevators, pay overdue bills, get home in time to make dinner for his son, never ask anyone to stay. But that rainy afternoon, 4 frightened children placed $6 on his table, pointed to the scar above his eye, and told him they had seen his face before in a photograph their mother kept locked away. What Ethan didn't know was that saying yes for just 45 minutes would pull him into a family's buried past, a powerful man's dangerous secret, and a second chance he had stopped believing he deserved. Stay with this story to the end, because sometimes the people who save us are the ones who simply choose not to leave. If you're watching, like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Just a few hours before 4, little girls placed $6.30 beside Ethan Mercer's cold tea. His day had begun in a kitchen where nothing matched. Not the chairs, not the plates, not even the socks on his son's feet. At 5:12 that morning, rain tapped softly against the kitchen window of a second-floor apartment in Tacoma, Washington, while Ethan stood barefoot at the stove trying to cook scrambled eggs without burning the toast. The apartment was small enough that he could hear almost everything from the kitchen: the hum of the old refrigerator, the shower dripping in the bathroom, the heater clicking twice before deciding it did not feel like working yet. On the refrigerator door hung a school calendar, 3 drawings, a grocery list, and an electric bill folded so only the blank side showed. Ethan had turned it around sometime after midnight. Final notice had been printed across the front in red. He did not want Noah seeing it before school. There were some things an 8-year-old should not have to carry before breakfast. Ethan moved the eggs with a wooden spoon and glanced at the clock. 5:14. He had exactly 11 minutes before he needed to wake Noah. He also needed to pack lunch, find the missing permission slip, put gas in the van, call the pharmacy, return a message from his dispatcher, and somehow remember that Noah needed poster board for a science project Ethan had learned about at 9:43 the previous night. He opened the pantry. 2 cans of tomato soup, half a bag of rice, peanut butter, a box of generic cereal, 1 sleeve of crackers. He stared for a moment. Then he reached for the peanut butter. From the hallway came a small voice. Dad. Ethan turned. Noah stood there wearing pajama pants covered in tiny dinosaurs and 2 different socks. One was blue. The other had a basketball on it. His dark hair stuck up on one side. Ethan leaned back against the counter. "You are 12 minutes early." Noah rubbed one eye. "I had a dream there was a whale in the parking lot. Was it paying rent? No, then we cannot keep it." Noah smiled and climbed onto the chair nearest the stove. Ethan placed a plate of eggs in front of him. Noah looked at the toast. One side was almost black. He looked at his father. Ethan pointed at it with the wooden spoon. "That is called texture. It is called burned. You are getting very judgmental for someone wearing 2 different socks." Noah looked down. "I did that on purpose." "Of course you did." For a few minutes the apartment felt warmer than it was. Noah ate. Ethan packed a peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, crackers, and the last chocolate pudding cup into a lunch bag that had a faded rocket ship on the front. He poured coffee into a travel mug and checked his bank balance on his phone. He should not have. The number sat there like an accusation. $73 until Friday. His van needed fuel. The electric bill was due. Noah needed poster board. Ethan locked the screen. Noah had stopped eating. He was looking toward the refrigerator. "Dad, yeah, can we be rich someday?" Ethan looked at him. It was not a dramatic question. Noah had asked it the same way he might ask whether they could get pizza on Friday. Ethan dried his hands on a dish towel. "How rich are we talking?" Noah considered it seriously. "Rich enough to buy cereal without checking which one is on sale." Ethan glanced at the generic cereal box. For half a second, something shifted behind his eyes. Then he smiled. "We are working on it." Noah nodded as if this was an acceptable business plan. Then he slid off the chair and ran toward his room. "I have to show you something." Ethan drank his coffee while standing. 30 seconds later, Noah returned carrying a sheet of construction paper. At the top, his teacher had written, "Draw someone you admire." Underneath was a picture of Ethan. At least Ethan assumed it was Ethan. The figure had shoulders wider than a refrigerator, enormous arms, and something that looked like a wrench in one hand. Beside him stood an elevator with smiling people inside. Across the top, Noah had written in uneven letters, "My dad gets people out." Ethan did not speak. Noah waited. "Do you like it?" Ethan swallowed. "Yeah. You are supposed to say more than yeah. I am taking it in." Noah pointed at the drawing. "That is your work shirt, I noticed, and that is your scar." A small line had been drawn above the figure's left eye. Ethan touched the thin, pale mark cutting through his eyebrow. 3 years had passed, but some mornings it still itched when the weather turned cold. Noah pointed again. "And those are your muscles." Ethan looked at the enormous arms. "You made those too big." No, they are hero arms." Ethan stared at the paper again. People rarely noticed the parts of his life Noah noticed. The customers noticed his boots. Building managers noticed how long the repair took. Dispatchers noticed whether he checked the right box on the service report. People who passed him in polished hotel corridors usually noticed the tool bag before they noticed his face. But Noah noticed that people were stuck when Ethan arrived and were not stuck when he left. That was enough for him. Ethan folded the drawing carefully. Noah protested immediately. "You cannot fold art. I need to take it with me. Why? So I can show everyone how irresponsibly large you think my arms are." Noah grinned. Ethan tucked the drawing into the inside pocket of his work bag. Then Noah went searching for tape. He opened the cabinet beneath the narrow bookshelf and pulled too hard on a plastic basket. Something wooden fell behind it. The sound was small. Ethan heard it anyway. He turned before the box even hit the floor. "Noah." His voice came out sharper than he intended. Noah froze. A small wooden box lay open beside his foot. Inside were pieces of a life Ethan had spent 5 years learning not to touch too often. A hospital bracelet, a silver necklace, 2 movie ticket stubs, a photograph of Ethan and Lena standing beside Puget Sound when Noah was still small enough to be asleep against her chest. A folded card, a wedding ring tied to a piece of blue ribbon. Noah crouched. "Sorry." Ethan crossed the room quickly, then slowed himself before reaching him. "It is okay. I was looking for tape, I know." Noah lifted the photograph. His mother was laughing in it. Lena had always laughed with her whole face, head tilted slightly back, eyes nearly closed, one hand holding Noah, the other wrapped around Ethan's waist. Noah studied it. "I remember this coat." Ethan sat on his heels beside him. "You do. It smelled like her." The words went through him quietly. That was how grief worked now. It no longer kicked the door down. It entered through tiny cracks. A coat, a song in a grocery store, a brand of shampoo, a child saying one sentence before school. Noah reached toward the folded card. Ethan placed his hand gently over the box. "Not before school, buddy." Noah looked at him. "You still get sad when you open it?" Ethan could have lied. He did not. Sometimes. Every time. Not every time. Noah thought about that. Then he nodded. He had become strangely respectful of sadness after Lena died. As if sadness were another adult in the house who needed quiet occasionally. Ethan closed the box and placed it back inside the cabinet. Noah found the tape on the kitchen counter 3 minutes later. It had been there the whole time. By 6:28, they were in Ethan's service van. The van was 12 years old white once, and now several different versions of gray. The passenger door only opened from the inside. The radio displayed the wrong time. Noah had named it Walter when he was 5, though neither of them remembered why. Ethan drove north through wet morning traffic while Noah talked about Wales volcanoes and whether teachers actually lived inside schools after everyone went home. At 7:03, Ethan dropped him at his sister Rachel's apartment. Rachel worked from home on Tuesdays and helped with the school run whenever Ethan had an early shift. She opened the building door wearing slippers and carrying a mug that said, "Not before coffee." Noah hugged Ethan around the waist. "Do not forget my drawing." Ethan tapped his work bag. "Hero arms are coming with me." Noah smiled. Then he ran inside. Ethan stood in the rain for a moment after the door closed. He always did that. Just long enough to make sure Noah was really inside. Then he went back to work. At 8:16, Noah's teacher called. He had forgotten the actual assignment sheet that needed to accompany the drawing. Ethan found it beneath the passenger seat of the van and drove back toward the school. A fundraising committee was setting up tables near the gym entrance. Parents moved between flower arrangements and catering trays wearing clean coats that had never met elevator grease. Ethan entered carrying his tool bag because he did not trust leaving it in the van. A woman in a camel-colored coat looked up from a clipboard. She glanced at his boots, then at the bag. Catering goes through the side entrance. Ethan stopped. The woman pointed helpfully toward the hallway. You can unload back there. For a second he simply looked at her, not angry, not surprised either. That was the part that tired him most, the lack of surprise. I am not with catering. Her smile disappeared. Oh, I am Noah Mercer's father. The woman's face changed immediately. Embarrassment rushed in. Then came the laugh, small, polite, designed to erase the sentence she had already said. I am so sorry, I just assumed. Ethan nodded. Yeah, he did not ask what she had assumed. He already knew. He walked past her and delivered the paper to Noah's teacher. Outside, he stood beneath the school awning while rain hit the parking lot hard enough to blur the painted lines. His phone rang. Dispatch. He answered. Mercer. His supervisor's voice came through. Emergency call downtown Seattle. Cascadia Grand. Private service lift stuck between 14 and 15. Ethan checked the time. 1:41 p.m. Anybody hurt one passenger. Hotel says he is fine but furious. That is usually more dangerous. His supervisor laughed. You are closest. I will take it. The drive into Seattle took longer than it should have. Rain tightened traffic along Interstate 5, brake lights glowing through the windshield. By 1:58, Ethan pulled beneath the awning of the Cascadia Grand Hotel. The building rose above the street in dark stone and brass, the kind of place where luggage had wheels quieter than Ethan's apartment refrigerator. A bellman looked at the van, then at Ethan, then toward the service entrance. Ethan had already started walking that way. He was used to knowing which doors people expected him to use. The hotel engineer met him beside a bank of private elevators. The passenger is Malcolm Pierce. Ethan opened his tool case. Should that mean something to me? The engineer blinked. Rowan grid. Ethan looked up. Still nothing. Vice chairman. Big clean energy company. Okay. He has been calling the general manager every 4 minutes. Ethan clipped his service phone to his belt. Then let us make him happy. The emergency system placed every service call into automatic recording mode. It protected technicians when clients disputed damage. It protected the company when someone claimed a repair had not been completed. Ethan barely thought about it anymore. A small icon lit on the screen. Recording active. He opened the access panel. From inside the trapped elevator, a man's voice shouted, How much longer? Ethan pressed the intercom. My name is Ethan Mercer. I am the elevator technician. I need you to stand away from the doors. I've been standing in this box for 17 minutes. I understand. No, you do not. Ethan glanced at the engineer. The engineer made a face. Ethan continued working. Sir, step away from the doors. Silence. Then Malcolm muttered something Ethan could not hear. Ethan bypassed the damaged relay, stabilized the brake circuit, and began a controlled manual descent. Inside the car, Malcolm started speaking on his phone. At first, Ethan ignored him. People talked when they were nervous. Some prayed, some cursed, some called attorneys. Malcolm sounded neither frightened nor angry now. He sounded focused. No, not at the house. Ethan tightened a connector. Malcolm continued. Too obvious. A pause. School pickup is better. Ethan's hand stopped for half a second, then continued. No names, no messages, just the photographs. Another pause. She needs to believe she is being watched. Ethan looked toward the elevator doors. The hotel engineer was reading diagnostics and did not seem to be listening. Malcolm's voice grew lower. Ethan could not hear everything. He caught fragments, Thursday committee, then later public. And if she loses control, they can act. Ethan heard the elevator brakes settle. He restored power. The doors opened slowly. Malcolm Pierce stood inside in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ethan's van. Silver hair, perfect tie, phone pressed to his ear. He did not look at Ethan. Not once. He walked out still talking. Handle it. Then he disappeared toward the ballroom corridor. The hotel engineer exhaled. Well, he seems pleasant. Ethan stared after him for a moment. Who was he talking about? The engineer shrugged. With guys like that, probably everybody. Ethan finished the inspection. 90 minutes later, the elevator passed every safety test. The hotel operations manager arrived personally. You saved us today. Ethan wiped grease from his hands. I fixed a relay. Same thing from where I am standing. Ethan packed his tools. The manager noticed how tired he looked. You eaten? I am good. That was not the question. Ethan smiled faintly. I have a protein bar in the van. The manager looked offended. No. 20 minutes later, Ethan was seated in the Cascadia Grand Tea Lounge with a cup of Earl Grey, a lemon tart, and the uncomfortable feeling that he had accidentally entered someone else's life. He had changed out of his stained work shirt in the restroom. The clean charcoal Henley came from the emergency clothes bag he kept behind the van seat. His boots still gave him away. He checked his phone. A message from Rachel. Noah is doing homework. He says you owe him poster board. Another message arrived from Noah. Did you fix the elevator? Ethan smiled. He typed, Yep, nobody's stuck anymore. He had not yet pressed send when 4 shadows fell across his table, and 40 minutes later, those same 4 girls were sitting around him as if the arrangement had been planned weeks ago. Harper had already created rules for being their temporary father. Rule 1 was that Ethan had to smile if anyone took a picture. Rule 2 was that he was not allowed to call them all sweetie because according to Harper, that was lazy. Rule 3 was that June could not be trusted with secrets. I can absolutely be trusted with secrets, June protested. You told Mrs. Calloway where Mommy hid her birthday present, she asked. That is not how secrets work. Ethan leaned back in his chair. What exactly am I supposed to do for these 45 minutes? Sadie looked at him. Sit here. That is it. And look normal. Ethan glanced at his boots. I might have been hired beyond my qualifications. June laughed. Wren did not. She remained close to Ethan's left side, her small hand resting near his sleeve. Every few seconds she looked toward the corridor. Ethan noticed. He always noticed people who were waiting for something bad to happen. He had seen that expression inside stalled elevators. The body still, the eyes moving, listening for the next sound. He lowered his voice. Is somebody bothering you? Wren looked at Harper. Harper answered. Mommy says we are safe. That was not what I asked. Sadie studied Ethan carefully. Then she said, Somebody takes pictures of us. Ethan's smile faded. What kind of pictures outside school? At ballet, near Grandma's house. June looked down at the table. They draw red circles around us. Ethan sat straighter. Does your mother know? All 4 girls nodded. Harper pushed the sugar bowl back and forth. She does not sleep much now. At that exact moment, 3 rooms away, Claire Rowan stood beneath chandelier light while 12 people discussed her children as if they were a weather. The Gold Room had been prepared for a city partnership announcement. Banners carrying the Rowan Grid logo stood beside the mayor's seal. Reporters waited outside. Board members filled the first 2 rows. Claire stood near a window with a tablet in one hand, while Malcolm Pierce spoke quietly beside 2 directors. She could not hear every word. She did not need to. She recognized the expressions. Concern. That was the word powerful people used when they wanted to question a woman without sounding cruel. Concern about her judgment. Concern about her workload. Concern about whether the recent security situation at home was affecting her leadership. 3 weeks earlier, Claire had received the first photograph. Harper and Sadie leaving school. A red circle around both of them. No message. 2 days later, another arrived. June outside dance class. Another red circle. Then Wren at a playground. Then all 4 girls walking with security. 12 photographs in 21 days. No ransom demand. No threat written in words. Just proof that somebody knew where her daughters were. Claire had added security, changed routes, canceled public appearances, stopped sleeping. Then the board began asking whether the crisis was impairing her ability to run Rowan Grid. The irony would have been funny if it were not so carefully timed. Rowan Grid had been founded by Claire's father 31 years earlier. When he retired, a family trust preserved Claire's voting authority, but included an emergency leadership provision designed for medical incapacity or catastrophic crisis. if the board triggered a temporary review and found the chief executive unable to perform her duties. Claire's proxy votes would move to an oversight committee. The chairman of that committee was Malcolm Pierce. And Malcolm wanted one thing Claire had refused to give him: approval for the sale of Rowan Grid to Halcyon Infrastructure Group. Claire opposed the acquisition because internal projections showed that nearly 1,800 jobs could disappear within 2 years. Malcolm called that sentimentality. Claire called it arithmetic with human beings included. He needed her votes. She would not give them to him. Now someone was photographing her children, and somehow her fear had become evidence against her. Her phone vibrated. Priya stood beside her. "Security says the girls left the family lounge." Claire turned. "What, they were with the nanny 5 minutes ago? Where are they? They are looking now." Claire's entire body tightened. Every sound in the ballroom disappeared behind the pounding in her chest. She walked out before Priya could finish. One corridor, then another. Her heels struck marble too quickly. She passed the hotel bar, the front desk, the tall windows overlooking wet Seattle streets. Then she saw them, all four, safe, laughing, surrounding a man Claire had never met. For one violent second, relief and terror hit her at the same time. Then she saw his work boots, his hands, the thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow. Claire stopped. Her breath left her. 3 years vanished. A hospital room, her sister Evelyn lying pale against white sheets. A newspaper clipping folded on the bedside table. A stranger's face caught in grainy black and white as he carried Evelyn out of a broken elevator. Claire had locked that photograph away after Evelyn died. She had not looked at it in more than a year. She had never shown it to the girls deliberately. Yet there he was, older, tired, alive, sitting beside Wren as if he belonged there. Claire's phone vibrated again, a message from the company attorney. "3 directors are asking about the emergency leadership clause. Call me." Claire stared at the screen, then back at Ethan. The girls were laughing at something he had said. Wren, who had stopped willingly touching unfamiliar adults after the threatening photographs began, had wrapped 2 fingers around his hand. Claire's fear did not disappear. It sharpened, because safety had become something she no longer trusted by appearance. She crossed the lounge. 2 security officers followed several steps behind her. Ethan saw her coming. Something in the girls changed. Harper sat straighter. June stopped laughing. Wren held Ethan's hand tighter. Claire stopped beside the table. Ethan rose immediately. He did not reach toward the girls. He did not make excuses. He simply stood. Claire looked at him, then at her daughters, then back at the scar she had known before she knew his name. Her voice was quiet. "Step away from my daughters," Ethan did, without argument. Claire watched him take 2 full steps backward. Only then did she ask the question she had carried across the marble floor. "Who are you?" Claire's question was quiet, but Ethan heard everything underneath it. Fear, suspicion, recognition, and something else he could not name. Ethan kept both hands where she could see them. "My name is Ethan Mercer." Claire waited. "I am an elevator technician. I came in this afternoon for an emergency service call." Her eyes moved briefly toward his boots, then back to his face. "My daughters approached me," Ethan continued. "I did not approach them." Harper immediately raised one hand from the table. "We hired him." Claire looked at her. Harper pointed to the velvet purse. "With our own money," June corrected her. "Technically, most of it was Grandma's birthday money." Harper frowned. "That was still ours." Claire closed her eyes for half a second. Ethan almost smiled, but the 2 security officers behind her made it clear this was not the moment. Claire looked at Wren. Her youngest daughter was still standing close to Ethan, fingers curled around the edge of his sleeve. Wren. Wren looked up. "Come here, sweetheart." Wren hesitated. That hesitation hurt Claire more than she expected. Not because Wren was choosing a stranger over her, because 3 weeks of fear had taught her daughter to calculate whether crossing 10 feet of open space was safe. Claire opened both arms. Wren finally released Ethan and hurried toward her. Claire caught her and held her tightly. She looked over Wren's shoulder at Ethan. "You understand how this looks?" "Yes." "You are sitting with 4 children you do not know?" "Yes." "Pretending to be their father?" Ethan glanced toward Harper. That part was explained to me after the payment negotiations. June whispered to Sadie. He is funny when he is nervous. I can hear you, Ethan said. June covered her mouth. For one brief second, Claire nearly laughed. It surprised her enough that the feeling disappeared immediately. She straightened. Daniel. One of the security officers stepped forward. Check his identification. Ethan reached slowly toward his back pocket. The second officer shifted his weight. Ethan stopped. Wallet is in my right pocket. Daniel nodded. Go ahead. Ethan removed it and handed over his driver's license. Daniel photographed the license and sent the information through his security system. Ethan waited. He did not complain. He did not ask whether Claire treated every stranger this way. He simply stood there while another man verified that Ethan Mercer of Tacoma, Washington was who he claimed to be. Claire noticed that, too. Most men with nothing to hide still became offended when questioned. Ethan seemed more concerned with making sure nobody had a reason to become more afraid. Daniel's phone vibrated. He checked it. Identity confirmed. No criminal record. Commercial elevator certification is active. Mercer Vertical Systems. Ethan nodded. That is my company. Daniel looked at Claire. Vehicle registration matches the service van downstairs. Hotel engineering confirms he completed the private lift repair this afternoon. Claire's shoulders lowered slightly. Only slightly. She looked back at Ethan. Why did you agree to what to pretending? Ethan looked at the girls. Harper suddenly became very interested in arranging teaspoons. They looked scared. Claire's expression changed. Ethan continued. I thought sitting with them for a few minutes was safer than letting them go looking for somebody else. Claire looked at Harper. Where is Mrs. Calloway? Harper did not answer. Sadie did. She got a phone call. From whom we do not know. She told us to stay in the family lounge, June added. Claire stared at them. And you left. Harper lifted her chin. The photographer was coming. Claire's face tightened. What photographer? The one who takes pictures when you look tired. Claire went silent. Ethan watched the words land. Harper kept talking because 6-year-olds rarely understood when adults needed time to absorb something. We thought if we had a dad, people would stop saying you look sad. Claire looked away. There were wounds a child could open without ever knowing she held a knife. Sadie spoke softly. We were helping. Claire crouched in front of them. I know. Her voice almost broke. She steadied it. I know you thought you were helping. Harper looked toward Ethan. He gave the money back. June nodded seriously. He has no business instincts. Ethan sighed. I am beginning to regret that decision. Claire finally let out the smallest breath of laughter. It lasted less than a second. Then she stood and faced Ethan again. Her gaze moved to his forehead. The scar. She had been trying not to look directly at it. Now she could not stop. Where did you get that Ethan touched the pale line above his left eyebrow? This? Yes. He shrugged. Work accident. When? 3 years ago. Claire's face lost color, where Ethan looked at her more carefully. Rivergate Tower. The hotel lounge seemed to become quieter around them. Claire did not move. Neither did Ethan. Rain slid down the windows behind him. Someone at another table set down a porcelain cup. The sound was suddenly too clear. Claire reached slowly into her purse. She removed her phone. Her fingers shook as she searched through photographs. Ethan noticed. Ma'am Claire found what she was looking for. She held the screen toward him. Have you ever seen this? Ethan looked down. For several seconds he forgot the hotel, forgot Claire, forgot the girls, forgot that 3 years had passed. A newspaper photograph filled the screen. The image was slightly blurred. Smoke hung inside an elevator doorway. A younger Ethan stood halfway outside the damaged car with one arm around a woman's back and the other beneath her knees. Blood stained the side of her evening dress. Her head rested against his shoulder. His own face was turned toward the camera. The scar above his eyebrow was fresh, dark, still bleeding. Ethan stared at the image. I have not seen that in years. Claire watched him closely. That is you. It was not a question. Ethan nodded. Yeah. Harper and June came closer. Wren stayed beside Claire. Sadie looked from Ethan to the photograph. Ethan reached toward the phone, then stopped. Can I? Claire handed it to him. He enlarged the image. The woman's face brought back pieces of the night, not the whole memory. Only fragments. The smell of overheated wiring, a warning alarm that would not stop ringing, the scrape of metal. A woman trying not to scream because she believed screaming would make the elevator fall, his own voice telling her to look at him. Not the floor, not the broken doors, at him. Breathe in, breathe out. He remembered her hand locking around his wrist when the rescue team finally reached the car. He remembered saying, "I have you." He remembered the doors opening. After that, only flashes. Paramedics, a security guard asking questions, blood on Ethan's sleeve, his phone ringing because Rachel was watching Noah and needed to know when he would be home. Noah had been 5. Lena had already been gone nearly 2 years. Ethan had left through the service corridor before the reporters arrived. He had never considered himself part of the story. Claire reached over and moved the photograph upward. Below it was a handwritten note. The words were faded but still readable. "He stayed until I stopped shaking. I never got his name." Ethan read it twice. "Who wrote this?" Claire's answer came softly. "My sister." Ethan looked at her. Evelyn Rowan. The name meant nothing at first. Then the face in the photograph seemed to change. Not because Ethan remembered her name, because she suddenly had one. Evelyn. He looked down again. "That was your sister." Claire nodded. "My younger sister. How is she?" Claire did not answer immediately. Ethan saw the answer arrive before she gave it. "She died." His eyes lifted. Claire continued before he could apologize. 8 months after the accident. Ethan's face tightened. "From the injuries, no." The answer came quickly. Claire had clearly said it before. Maybe to herself, maybe to doctors, maybe to people who had asked questions she was tired of answering. She had a congenital heart condition. We knew about it since she was a teenager. The accident did not cause her death. Ethan looked down. Claire noticed what he had been afraid to ask. "You saved her that night." He swallowed. Claire looked back at the photograph. She had a fractured pelvis, 2 broken ribs, internal bleeding. Doctor said another 20 minutes in that elevator could have changed everything. Ethan's thumb rested against the edge of the phone. "I left. You went home." He looked at her. "How do you know?" "Evelyn spent months trying to find you." Claire took the phone from him. She called Rivergate. She called every elevator company listed on the incident report. She called the newspaper that took the picture. Ethan said nothing. The building had hired subcontractors that night. Somebody had your first name. Somebody else remembered the company logo on your shirt. Nobody had enough to find you. I did not know anyone was looking. I believe you." Her voice softened. "She kept saying she wanted to thank you properly." Ethan looked toward the windows. "I did my job." Claire gave him a strange look. "That is exactly what she said you would say." For the first time since Claire crossed the hotel lounge, the fear between them shifted. It did not disappear. But something else entered the space. A memory shared by 2 people who had never met. Ethan looked at the handwriting again. She was scared. Claire nodded. Terrified of elevators after that. "I meant that night." He paused. She kept apologizing. "For what I do not know." Ethan searched the memory. "She apologized because I had to stay with her. Said I probably had somewhere else to be." Claire's mouth trembled. "That sounds like Evelyn." Ethan handed the phone back. "What happened to the photograph?" Claire looked at the screen. "I locked it away." Harper looked guilty. Claire noticed. "You found it." Harper hesitated. "We were looking for Grandma's necklace, in my bedroom. It was an emergency." "What kind of emergency requires my mother's necklace?" June answered. "Princess emergency." Claire pressed 2 fingers against her forehead. Sadie pointed toward the phone. "We saw Aunt Evie. And him," Wren whispered. Everyone looked at Ethan. Wren touched her own eyebrow where Ethan's scar would be. "We remembered." Claire looked at her daughter. That explained the recognition. It did not explain the timing. It did not explain the threats. And it did not explain why Malcolm Pierce had appeared in the corridor only minutes after her daughters chose the one stranger connected to the most painful photograph in Claire's home. A familiar voice came from behind them. "Claire!" Wren changed instantly. Her hand clamped around Claire's fingers. Ethan saw the reaction before he saw the man. Her shoulders rose, her breathing stopped, then became fast. Too fast. Claire turned. Malcolm Pierce was walking toward them. He had changed nothing since leaving the elevator except his expression. The irritation Ethan had seen earlier was gone. Now he wore the polished concern of a man who knew people were watching. "Everyone has been looking for you." He glanced at the girls, then Ethan. His eyes rested there a moment too long, and apparently for them. Claire's voice hardened. "We are fine." Malcolm smiled. "Of course." Wren began trembling. Ethan looked down. Her face had gone pale. Wren. She did not look at him. Her eyes were fixed on Malcolm. Claire crouched immediately. "Sweetheart, look at me." Wren's breathing grew sharper. "Look at Mommy." "Nothing." Claire took her face gently between both hands. "Wren." Wren finally whispered. "That's him." Claire went still. Who? Wren's lips shook. "The man." "What man?" Wren pointed. Malcolm's smile disappeared for half a second. "The man from Daddy's last fight." Claire stared at her. "What fight?" Wren began crying. Not loudly. That made it worse. Tears rolled down her face while her body remained almost completely still. "I heard him." "When at Daddy's house." Claire's face drained. Ethan stepped closer, then stopped himself. Malcolm gave a short exhale. "Claire, she is frightened. Children connect things that are not connected." Wren turned toward his voice and covered both ears. Ethan's jaw tightened. Claire saw it. Malcolm saw it too. He looked at Ethan. "You are the technician." Ethan recognized the tone immediately. Not recognition of a person. Recognition of a category. Someone who fixed something, someone beneath notice. "Yeah." Malcolm studied him. "You were in the service elevator for 19 minutes. Malcolm smiled faintly. "You kept track. I was getting paid." The smile thinned. Claire stood. What did Wren mean? Malcolm looked at her. "How would I know?" "You knew Andrew. Everybody knew Andrew. You met with him." Malcolm's expression did not change. "This is not the place." Claire stared at him. "What place would you prefer?" A voice came from behind Claire. "Ma'am." Priya Shah stood several feet away, holding a tablet against her chest. She had worked for Claire for 6 years. Claire knew every version of Priya's face. The one she wore now meant something had gone wrong enough that she did not want to say it in front of the girls. Priya glanced toward the lounge door. "Can I speak with you privately?" Claire looked at Wren. Ethan quietly said, "I can stay here." Claire looked at him. 3 minutes earlier, she would never have considered it. Now Wren was already reaching toward him. Claire looked at Daniel. "Stay with them." Then to Ethan. "Do not leave. I will not." The words came easily. For some reason, Claire believed them. She followed Priya toward a quiet alcove near the lobby staircase. Malcolm started after them. Claire turned. "Not you." He stopped. His jaw shifted. Priya waited until they were far enough away that the children could not hear. "What is it?" Priya unlocked the tablet. "I searched the old executive archive." "For what?" "Andrew." Claire's expression tightened. She had not heard her former husband's name this many times in years. Priya turned the screen toward her. "I found correspondence from 4 years ago." Claire scanned the first email. Sender, M. Pierce. Recipient, Andrew Lawson. Her stomach tightened. The message was short. 4 children, a succession fight, and an exhausted CEO candidate are not a story investors will tolerate. Leave cleanly, and I will make sure your settlement is protected. Claire read it once. Then again, her fingers went numb. What is this? There are more. Priya opened another. A calendar invitation. Private dinner. Malcolm Pierce. Andrew Lawson. 6 weeks before Andrew left. Then another message. If she becomes CEO, the family becomes part of the company narrative. You know how this ends. Protect yourself before she chooses the company over you. Claire stopped reading. The hotel around her blurred. 4 years disappeared. She saw herself at 34, pregnant with 4 babies, then recovering from an emergency delivery, then sleeping 90 minutes at a time, then sitting at a dining room table while Andrew stared at a glass of water and told her he could not do this anymore. She remembered asking what she had done. Andrew had said nothing. She remembered promising she could change, work less, travel less, ask her father to delay the succession vote. Andrew had only repeated that he was tired. Then he left. For 4 years, Claire had carried one explanation because it was easier than carrying none. She had been too much. 4 babies had been too much. Her ambition had been too much. Her exhaustion had been too much. Her need had been too much. And now Malcolm Pierce's name sat above an email written 6 weeks before her marriage collapsed. Claire looked at Priya. "You had these numbers." Priya's face tightened. "They were in the archived executive server. I only found them because Wren said Malcolm's name, and I searched his correspondence with Andrew." Claire looked toward Malcolm across the lounge. He stood near Ethan, speaking to nobody, watching everything. He helped Andrew leave. Priya spoke carefully. "We know he contacted him. We know he offered help with the settlement. We do not know exactly what happened between them." Claire appreciated that. Facts, not guesses. She needed facts. She had spent too long living inside other people's explanations. Why Priya hesitated, Claire already knew. 4 years earlier, Claire's father had been preparing to retire. The board had 2 serious candidates, Claire and Malcolm Pierce. Claire had the founders' trust votes. Malcolm had the support of several institutional investors. Then Claire became pregnant with quadruplets. People who had praised her discipline suddenly began using different words: capacity, continuity, focus. Some board members asked whether she still wanted the position. Others asked whether she could realistically raise 4 infants while running a public company. Malcolm never asked those questions directly. He did not need to. He simply stood nearby while everyone else asked them. Claire won the succession vote by 2 seats. Malcolm congratulated her. Andrew left 3 months later. Claire looked at the old emails again. He thought if my marriage collapsed, the board would choose him. Priya said nothing. Claire's eyes burned. He lost anyway. Yes. She looked across the lounge. Malcolm met her gaze. Claire finally understood the thing in his expression she had mistaken for professional disagreement all these years. Resentment. Not because she had failed, because she had survived. Ethan was still standing beside the children when Claire returned. Wren sat beside him. He had not touched her. He simply sat close enough that she knew he was there. Malcolm looked at Claire. "Are we finished?" Claire stopped several feet away. "No," he sighed. "Claire, you contacted Andrew before he left." Silence. The girls looked up. Claire saw Harper listening and immediately lowered her voice. To the hallway. Malcolm followed. Ethan did too, but stayed several feet behind with Daniel. Claire held Priya's tablet. "You offered to protect Andrew's settlement." Malcolm glanced at the screen. "You are digging through 4-year-old emails during a corporate crisis. You told him my children would destroy the company story." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "I told him what the market would think. You encouraged him to leave. I advised him to protect himself. You interfered in my marriage." "No." Malcolm's voice remained calm. "I recognized a failing marriage before you did." Claire recoiled as if slapped. Malcolm leaned slightly closer. "Andrew was unhappy. You used that. I told him the truth. You told him I would choose the company over him." "Did you?" Claire stared at him. He smiled. That smile did something to Wren. She made a small sound behind Claire. Ethan looked toward her. Then Malcolm spoke again. "You are proving my point right now. There are reporters 30 feet away. Your children are unsupervised. One of them is crying. And you are confronting a board officer in a hotel lobby over emails from 4 years ago." He glanced toward the ballroom. "The board is already concerned about your judgment." Claire understood then. Every sentence had an audience. Every raised breath. Every tear. Every child frightened enough to hide behind a stranger. Malcolm was not defending himself. He was using the moment. Ethan stepped forward. "I heard you this afternoon." Malcolm turned. For the first time, real irritation appeared. "Excuse me in the elevator." Claire looked at Ethan. His eyes stayed on Malcolm. "You were on the phone." Malcolm's expression became blank. "People use phones. You said school pickup was better than the house. Nobody moved." Ethan continued. "You said no messages, just photographs." Claire's grip tightened around the tablet. Malcolm stared at Ethan. Ethan's voice remained level. "You said she needed to believe she was being watched." Malcolm took one step closer. "You should be very careful about what you think you heard." "I am." Claire looked at Ethan. "Was the service call recorded?" Ethan blinked, then immediately reached for the phone clipped to his belt. "Yes." Malcolm's face changed. Small, fast. But Claire saw it. Ethan opened the service application. He entered his employee code. The screen loaded. Emergency calls record automatically. Malcolm laughed once. Convenient. It is company liability policy. Ethan found the Cascadia Grand job. The file showed a cloud icon, Sing Sing. He frowned. What the full audio is uploading to the server. How long I do not know. He opened the local cache. Some of it is here. Claire moved beside him. Ethan pressed play. Mechanical noise filled the tiny speaker. Metal. A warning tone. Then Malcolm's voice. Faint. School pickup. Static. The audio cut. Ethan moved forward. Another fragment. Make her feel watched. Claire stopped breathing. Ethan skipped ahead. Malcolm again. Committee can act. Then silence. The cached recording ended. Malcolm looked almost amused. That proves nothing. Claire looked at him. He was right. Not legally. Not yet. 3 fragments. No full sentence, no name, no direct admission. But Claire had spent 3 weeks staring at photographs of her daughters. School pickup. Make her feel watched. Committee can act. The pieces fit too cleanly. Malcolm straightened his cuffs. You have allowed fear to turn coincidence into conspiracy. Claire stared at him. He continued, This is exactly why directors are worried. Ethan looked at Claire. She did not look frightened anymore. That emotion had burned through. What remained was colder, more focused. She looked toward the ballroom doors. Beyond them waited the mayor. Investors, board members, press, cameras. People who had already spent weeks watching her for signs that she could no longer carry everything she had been forced to carry. Claire looked at the photographs on her own phone, then at Priya's archived emails, then at Ethan's service recording. The same thought moved through her with a clarity that almost made her calm. The photographs had never contained demands, because Malcolm did not want money. He did not want her daughters. He did not even want Claire to hide. He needed her outside, visible, exhausted, afraid. He needed security doubled. Meetings canceled. Her concentration fractured. Her daughters nervous. He needed a photograph of a CEO crying in a hotel lobby, a mother losing control, a board wondering whether she could still lead. Claire looked at Ethan. He never wanted to scare me away. Ethan's face hardened. Claire turned toward the ballroom where voices and camera shutters drifted through the doors. He wanted everyone to watch me break. Claire said it so quietly that Ethan almost missed the words. Then a camera shutter clicked from somewhere behind them. Once, twice. Claire turned. A reporter stood near the entrance to the lounge with his phone raised, trying to look as though he had only happened to be there. He lowered it when Claire saw him. Too late. Priya noticed him too. So it has started. Claire looked at her. What has Priya lifted her phone? The first post had already gone live. Rowan Grid CEO seen in emotional hotel incident hours before city announcement. There was a photograph beneath the caption. Claire kneeling on the marble floor, Wren crying in her arms, Ethan standing beside them. The image had been taken from an angle that made his presence look threatening instead of protective. Another photograph showed hotel security near Ethan. Without context, it looked like they were confronting him. Claire stared at the screen. They were waiting. Priya nodded slowly. I think so. Malcolm stood several feet away, pretending to check a message. Ethan looked at him. Malcolm did not look back. That told Ethan almost everything. Claire's phone rang. The name on the screen belonged to Rebecca Shaw Rowan Grid's general counsel. Claire answered. Rebecca, the attorney, did not waste time. I need you somewhere private. Claire looked around. There is nowhere private. Then listen carefully. Claire turned away from the crowd. Rebecca continued. 3 directors have formally requested an emergency leadership review. Claire closed her eyes. How soon? 75 minutes. Claire looked at her watch. The mayor's announcement was scheduled to begin in less than 15. Rebecca spoke again. They are citing concerns about impaired judgment, repeated security disruptions, missed executive meetings, and the incident occurring right now. Claire looked toward Malcolm. He was speaking to one of the board members. Calmly, almost gently. What happens if the review passes? You know what happens. Say it. Rebecca paused. Your voting proxy moves to the oversight committee until the board clears you to return. Claire watched Malcolm place a hand on the director's shoulder. And Malcolm chairs the committee. Yes. Which gives him the votes for Halcyon. Yes. For the first time that afternoon, Claire felt something close to nausea. Not because the plan was clever, because it was simple. The photographs, the missed meetings, the frightened children, the reporters, the public scene. Malcolm had not created one disaster, he had created a trail, a series of small things that could be stacked until they looked like evidence of a woman losing control. Rebecca lowered her voice. "Claire, if there is anything you have not told me, tell me now." Claire looked at Ethan, then at Priya's tablet, then at Malcolm. "We may have evidence. What kind? A recorded service call?" Silence. "Recorded by whom?" "The elevator technician standing beside me." Rebecca exhaled. "That sentence created 6 new legal questions, I know. Do not release anything publicly until I hear it." Claire looked toward the ballroom. "I may not have that luxury. Claire, I will call you back." She ended the call. Priya was already working. Her fingers moved quickly across the tablet. "What are you doing?" "Finding the vendor." "What vendor?" "The one that took the photographs." Claire looked at her. "You can do that, I can try." Priya glanced toward Malcolm. "Someone paid them." Across the lounge, Harper was explaining the concept of temporary fatherhood to Daniel, who looked like he would rather negotiate with armed men. June had eaten half of Ethan's lemon tart. Sadie was watching Claire. Wren was still pale, but she was breathing normally again. Ethan looked at the girls, then at Claire. "You have people for this now." Claire turned. "What, lawyers? Security? Your assistant?" He nodded toward the ballroom. "A whole room full of people wearing suits who probably understand more about this than I do." Claire studied him. Ethan reached for his service bag. "You have the recording. When the rest sinks, I can send it to your attorney. You are leaving." It came out more sharply than Claire intended. Ethan stopped. "I should." Why he looked around. "This is not my world." Claire almost laughed. "Neither is mine today." "You know what I mean." "Yes." Claire knew exactly what he meant. His shirt was clean, but the edges of his fingernails were still dark from machine grease. Everyone else in the hotel seemed built for polished rooms. Ethan looked built for boiler rooms, service corridors, metal ladders, places where nobody took pictures unless something had gone wrong. He lowered his voice. "I have a son waiting for me." Claire's expression softened. "I know, and I have already heard things I probably was not supposed to hear. That has not stopped anyone else in this building." He smiled faintly. It disappeared quickly. "You have what you need from me." Claire looked at the ballroom doors, then back at Ethan. That is what Evelyn thought, too. Silence. Claire realized what she had said. Her face changed immediately. That was unfair. Ethan looked away. "I am sorry." He said nothing. Claire stepped closer. "I mean it." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I know. I should not have used her." "You did not." "Yes, I did." Claire lowered her voice. "I wanted you to stay, so I said the one thing I knew might make leaving harder." Ethan finally looked at her. "That is not very CEO of you." "No." "What is it, desperate?" They stood there for a moment. Not executive and technician, not rich woman and working man. Just 2 exhausted parents standing inside an afternoon that had stopped belonging to either of them. Ethan slowly set his service bag back down. "I can stay until your lawyer gets the recording." Claire nodded. "Thank you." His phone vibrated. "Noah." Ethan looked at the screen. "I need to take this." Claire nodded. He stepped toward the tall windows. Noah appeared on video with spaghetti sauce across one cheek. "Dad." "Hey, buddy, you forgot poster board." Ethan closed his eyes. "I did. I knew it. You sound pleased. I like being right." Rachel's voice came from somewhere off camera. "He gets that from you. I heard that." Noah leaned closer to the phone. "Are you still at the hotel?" "Yeah." Why, before Ethan could answer, June appeared beside his elbow. "Hi." Noah jumped. "Who are you, June?" Harper pushed into frame. "I am Harper." Sadie appeared next. "Sadie." Wren stayed behind them until June pulled her gently forward. And Wren. Noah stared at all 4 faces. He looked at Ethan. "Dad." "Yeah." "Why are there 4 of them?" June answered for him. "We came that way." Noah blinked. Harper whispered to Ethan. "Is he always this confused?" Ethan rubbed his forehead. "Only when I call him." Noah heard that. "I heard you." Within seconds, all 5 children were talking over one another. June asked if Noah liked pancakes. Harper asked if he played soccer. Sadie asked if he had any sisters. Wren simply watched him. Then June asked the question, "Do you want 4 sisters?" Ethan nearly dropped the phone. June. What Claire, standing several feet away, covered her mouth. Noah stared at the screen, then at Ethan. "Do I get a vote?" Ethan laughed. It came out before he could stop it. A real laugh. Claire watched him. She had seen photographs of Ethan carrying her sister through smoke. She had watched him stand still while security checked his identity. She had seen him calm Ren simply by refusing to become another loud adult in the room. But this was different. This was Ethan with his son. His whole face changed. The guardedness disappeared. The tiredness remained, but it became softer. Noah held up another drawing. "This is the science project." Ethan squinted. "What am I looking at? A volcano? That looks like mashed potatoes. It is not finished." "Then I apologize to the volcano." Noah grinned. Ethan looked at his son for a long second. "I will bring the poster board home. You promise?" "I promise." "Okay?" Then Noah lowered his voice. "Dad, yeah, you okay?" The question caught Ethan off guard. He looked toward Claire. She looked away, pretending not to listen. "I am okay." Noah studied him. "Okay, I love you. Love you too." The call ended. The girls drifted back toward their table. Claire remained near the windows. Ethan slipped his phone into his pocket. "He is sweet. He is 8. That was not an answer. It is the safest answer. Claire smiled. Then her eyes moved toward the folded corner of paper sticking out of Ethan's work bag. "What?" Ethan followed her gaze. "Noah's drawing. Can I see?" He hesitated, then pulled it out. Claire studied the enormous figure holding a wrench beside an elevator. "My dad gets people out." She smiled. "He gave you very large arms. That is what I said." "What did he say, hero arms?" Claire looked at Ethan. He looked uncomfortable. She handed the drawing back carefully. "How long have you been raising him alone?" Ethan folded the paper. 5 years. Claire's expression changed. "His mother died. Yes, I am sorry." Ethan nodded. Claire waited. He did not offer more. She almost let the silence stay there. Then she asked quietly, "What was her name?" Ethan looked out through the glass. Rainwater moved down the window in slow lines. "Lena." Claire waited again. This time Ethan continued. "She had cancer." His voice was calm. Almost too calm. 14 months from diagnosis to funeral. Claire looked at him. Noah was 3. Almost 4. Ethan slid the drawing back into his bag. "I was working 2 jobs then. Did you stop working? No?" Claire nodded. Of course he had not. "What did you do?" Ethan gave a small shrug. "What everyone does." Claire shook her head. "Not everyone." He looked at her. "I made breakfast, took her to appointments, worked, came home, put Noah to bed, did laundry at 1 in the morning." He paused. "I learned how to sleep in chairs." Claire said nothing. Ethan stared at the rain. Then one morning there were no more appointments. His throat moved. Claire looked away for a second to give him privacy without leaving. "You never remarried." "No." "Did you ever try?" Ethan gave a quiet laugh with no humor in it. "I went to dinner twice. In 5 years, 3 times. That is slightly better. One woman left before dessert." Claire raised an eyebrow. "What did you do?" "I talked about elevator maintenance for 20 minutes. Claire laughed before she could stop herself. Ethan looked at her. "That is fair. I am sorry. You are not. No." For a few seconds the hotel disappeared around them. Then Claire's smile faded. "Why did you stop?" Ethan's eyes stayed on the street below. "I got good at leaving before anybody could ask me to stay." Claire did not respond immediately. She understood that sentence too well, though from the opposite direction. "I am bad at leaving." Ethan looked at her. "I stay. With people, with everything." Claire folded her arms. "My marriage. Meetings I should have walked out of. Board members who asked whether 4 daughters made me too distracted to lead." Her eyes hardened. "I stayed polite when people talked about my family like it was a balance sheet problem." Ethan glanced toward the girls. "They hear more than you think." "I know." Claire looked at Ren. "That is what scares me." She lowered her voice. "I kept telling them everything was fine because I thought that was what a mother was supposed to do." Ethan watched her. "Maybe they do not need fine." Claire looked at him. He spoke carefully. "Maybe they need to see you scared." She almost laughed. "That seems like terrible parenting advice." I am not done. Sorry, maybe they need to see you scared and then see you keep going. Claire stopped smiling. Ethan looked toward Wren. If kids only see us when we are strong, they start thinking fear is something they are supposed to hide. Claire's eyes moved to him. How do you know that? Because Noah spent a year pretending he did not miss his mother. The words landed quietly. Claire looked toward her daughters. Harper was arguing with June. Sadie was arranging sugar packets. Wren was drawing circles in spilled condensation with one finger. Claire whispered, I have been teaching them how to pretend. Ethan shook his head. You have been trying to keep them safe. That does not mean I did it right. No. Claire looked at him. His answer surprised her. Then he added, but it means you can do something different tomorrow. She smiled faintly. Most people tell me I am doing an amazing job. They are probably afraid of you. That includes you. I am standing beside a CEO who has 2 security guards and 4 daughters willing to hire strangers. He considered it. A little. She laughed again. Priya approached quickly. The softness vanished from Claire's expression. I found something. They moved toward the edge of the lounge. Priya held up her tablet. The photographs came from a risk consulting firm called North Sound Advisory. Claire frowned. I know that name. You should. Priya turned the screen. They did background work for Rowan Grid 2 years ago. Who hired them now? That took longer. Priya opened an invoice. Executive discretionary account. Claire read the authorization code. M. Pierce. She looked up. Malcolm. Priya nodded. 4 payments in the last 6 weeks. Another file appeared. Hotel security also found footage from outside the dance studio last Thursday. The screen showed a man photographing children from inside a parked SUV. His face was partly visible. Priya changed images. Same man entered North Sound Advisory's office 2 days later. Claire's breathing slowed. Not because she was calmer, because the fear had finally become something she could name. Evidence. Ethan looked at the files. You have him. Not completely, Priya said, but we have a chain. Claire looked toward Malcolm. He was no longer in the lounge. Where is he? Daniel turned. He walked toward the service corridor. Ethan's expression changed. His phone vibrated. Service audio sync complete. He looked at the screen, then toward the corridor. I need somewhere quiet. Claire stepped toward him. No, send it to Rebecca first. I will. He opened the upload menu. Before he could finish, Malcolm's voice came from behind him. Mr. Mercer. Ethan turned. Malcolm stood alone near the service entrance. His expression was calm. May I have a word? Claire moved forward. Malcolm raised one hand, privately. Ethan looked at Claire, then at Malcolm. I am fine. Claire did not like it. Ethan knew. He followed Malcolm only as far as a short service corridor visible from the lounge. Malcolm stopped beside a closed housekeeping door. You have had an interesting afternoon. Ethan said nothing. Malcolm looked at his boots, then his shirt, then the old service bag. You fix elevators. Yes, I move companies. Ethan leaned against the wall. Congratulations. Malcolm studied him. You think Claire Rowan is going to remember you after today? Ethan's expression did not change. That is not why I am here. Everyone is somewhere for a reason. Malcolm took out his phone. He opened a banking screen. The number he showed Ethan made Ethan's chest tighten. $100,000. Enough to clear every overdue bill. Enough for a newer van. Enough to put something away for Noah. Enough to breathe. Malcolm watched his eyes. There, he smiled. Now we are talking honestly. Ethan looked at the number, then at Malcolm. What do you want? Nothing dramatic. Malcolm slipped the phone back into his pocket. You misunderstood a conversation. I did not. You heard fragments while working around machinery. I heard enough. You tell Claire's attorney exactly that. Malcolm leaned closer. You say you cannot be certain who I was discussing. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then what? The money is transferred tonight. Ethan looked down the corridor. Claire stood at the far end. He could see the outline of her through the glass door. Harper beside her. Wren holding her hand. Malcolm followed his gaze. You have a son. Ethan turned sharply. Malcolm smiled. Public records are public. Ethan's voice dropped. Do not talk about my son. You are behind on utilities. Ethan went still. You owe money on the van, Malcolm continued. You have $43 in a college savings account. Ethan stared at him. Malcolm spoke softly. You can spend your life fixing other people's elevators, or you can take one afternoon and fix your own. Ethan looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled. Not warmly. Everybody has a price. Is that what you tell yourself? Malcolm's expression hardened. Everybody does. Ethan picked up his service bag. Maybe that is why you keep misjudging people. He walked away. Malcolm remained in the corridor. For the first time all afternoon, he looked uncertain. Ethan returned to Claire. She saw his face. What did he offer money? How much enough? Claire looked at him. And I said no. She held his gaze. Why, Ethan frowned. Why would I say yes? Claire had no answer. Maybe because most people around her eventually calculated something. Access, position, money, influence, a seat closer to power. Ethan seemed almost offended by the question. Priya's phone rang. She answered. Her expression changed. Claire. What? The board sent the formal notice. Claire took the phone. The message was brief. The emergency leadership review would begin in 63 minutes. Attendance required. Failure to appear would be treated as voluntary temporary withdrawal. At the same time, a hotel coordinator hurried toward them. Ms. Rowan, the mayor is ready. They need you in the ballroom in 12 minutes. Priya looked at Claire, then at the board notice, then toward the ballroom. What do you want to cancel? Claire stared at the doors. For 3 weeks, someone had been teaching her to retreat. Take the girls out of school. Cancel dinner. Cancel travel. Cancel press events. Miss meetings. Hide. Every safe decision had been turned into evidence that she could not lead. Claire slipped the phone into Priya's hand. Nothing. Priya blinked. Claire, send everything to Rebecca. All of it, the invoices, the footage, the emails, Ethan's recording as soon as he sends it. Ethan held up his phone. Sending now. Claire looked toward the ballroom. The mayor's staff was already gathering near the entrance. Reporters shifted into position. Board members watched from beyond the doors. Malcolm stepped back into the lounge and adjusted his cuffs. Perfect again. Calm again. As if the conversation in the service corridor had never happened. Claire straightened her jacket. Then she looked at her daughters. Harper was trying to appear brave. Sadie understood more than Claire wanted her to. June had stopped making jokes. Wren reached for Claire's hand. Claire took it. Ethan stepped beside her. You sure? Claire looked at him. No. Then she opened the ballroom doors. But I am going anyway. The ballroom doors opened with a soft mechanical whisper. Claire stepped through first. Wren's hand was inside hers. Ethan walked several paces behind with Harper, Sadie, and June close beside him. For 1 second, nobody in the room seemed to notice them. The gold room was still moving according to schedule. Servers carried silver trays between tables. Camera operators adjusted lenses. The city seal glowed on a screen behind the stage beside the Rowan Grid logo. A string quartet near the far wall played something light and expensive. The mayor stood beside the podium, speaking quietly with 2 members of his staff. Then someone near the first row turned. Another person followed. The movement spread through the room like wind bending grass. 1 face, then 20, then nearly every face in the ballroom. Conversations faded. The quartet stopped playing. Claire felt the silence arrive before she reached the center aisle. She had spoken in rooms larger than this one. She had negotiated contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. She had sat across from governors, union leaders, investors, engineers, and men who believed volume was a substitute for authority. None of that frightened her the way walking through this ballroom did. Because this time the thing being evaluated was not a contract. It was her face, her children, her fear. Whether she looked tired, whether Wren looked frightened. Whether some photograph could make strangers believe Claire Rowan had become a danger to the company her family had spent 3 decades building. Claire kept walking. A reporter lifted his phone. Another camera turned toward her. Then another. Wren's grip tightened. Claire looked down. You okay? Wren nodded, but her eyes said no. Claire stopped. The room was watching. She knew that. For weeks, she had lived as if every moment could become evidence against her. She had learned to hurry, frighten children out of public spaces before someone could photograph them. She had learned to dry tears quickly, to straighten clothing, to smile when she wanted to scream. Now she crouched in the middle of the aisle. She did not hide Wren. She did not tell her to stop shaking. She simply looked into her daughter's eyes. "You do not have to be okay yet." Wren stared at her. Claire brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You just have to walk with me." Wren swallowed, then nodded. Claire stood again. Ethan watched from behind. Something about that small exchange stayed with him. She was still scared, but she was no longer pretending not to be. Claire reached the front of the room. Priya moved toward the technical station beside the stage. Daniel and the other security officer positioned themselves near the girls. Ethan stopped beside a support column. He looked down at his phone. The full-service recording had been sent to Rebecca. A second message followed almost immediately. "Received. Do not delete original." Ethan put the phone away. Across the room, Malcolm Pierce entered through a side door. Fresh expression. Straight tie. No sign that 10 minutes earlier he had offered a working father enough money to change his entire life in exchange for one lie. Malcolm took his seat in the front row. He did not look at Ethan. That bothered Ethan more than if he had stared. Claire reached the stage. The mayor approached her quietly. "Claire, Mr. Mayor, I have been told there is a situation." "There is. Do we postpone?" Claire looked at the audience. Several board members sat together near the front, phones in their hands, concern written carefully across their faces. She could almost hear the language being drafted. Temporary measure, responsible governance, protecting shareholder confidence. She looked back at the mayor. "No." He studied her for 1 second, then stepped aside. Claire moved behind the podium. Bright light struck her face. She placed both hands on the edge. The room waited. "Good afternoon." Malcolm stood. The sound of his chair scraping against the floor cut through the ballroom. Claire stopped. Malcolm turned first toward the board, not toward her. "Before Ms. Rowan begins, I believe there is an issue that cannot responsibly be ignored." A murmur passed through the room. Claire looked at him. "Sit down, Malcolm." His expression remained almost sympathetic. That would be easier. Claire's jaw tightened. Malcolm lifted his phone. A photograph appeared on the screen. Claire recognized it immediately. The image from the lounge. Wren crying in her arms. Ethan standing nearby. Security beside him. Malcolm turned the screen toward the people nearest him. Less than 30 minutes ago, Ms. Rowan's 4 children were discovered in a public hotel lounge with an unidentified man. Ethan felt Harper move closer to him. Malcolm continued. "One child experienced a severe panic episode. Hotel security became involved. Reporters witnessed the incident." Claire said nothing. Malcolm looked toward the board. "We have spent 3 weeks trying to determine whether the pressures surrounding Ms. Rowan's personal life are beginning to affect her ability to carry out the duties of chief executive." Claire gripped the podium. He was choosing every word carefully. Not mother, personal life, not frightened daughter, panic episode, not threats against children, pressures, everything stripped of humanity until it sounded like a risk report. Malcolm gestured toward Ethan, and now an unknown man is involved. Heads turned. Ethan remained beside the column. Malcolm looked directly at him. "Would you like to tell the room who you are?" Claire spoke first. "No." Malcolm looked back toward her. Claire stepped away from the podium. "You do not get to put him on trial because you need a distraction. I am asking a reasonable question." "No." Her voice carried farther now. "You are building a reasonable-sounding lie." The room went still. Malcolm gave a small smile. "Claire, this is precisely the kind of emotional language that concerns the board." There it was. The trap. If she raised her voice, she was unstable. If she cried, she was weak. If she walked away, she was incapable. If she stayed silent, Malcolm controlled the story. Claire looked toward Wren. Her daughter stood beside Daniel with both hands pressed together. Harper stared at Malcolm with open anger. Sadie watched her mother. June was biting her lower lip. Claire looked back towards the room. "My daughter was afraid today." Malcolm's smile barely changed. Claire continued. "So was I." Several board members shifted. One looked down at his notes. Claire walked to the edge of the stage. "Somebody has been following my children for 3 weeks." The room quieted further. Somebody photographed them outside school, outside dance class, outside my mother's home. Malcolm interrupted. Those incidents are already under investigation. Claire looked at him. Yes. She paused. And while they were happening, you repeatedly told the board that my response to those threats showed I was losing control. Malcolm folded his hands. I questioned whether extraordinary personal stress was affecting executive judgment. Claire almost smiled. You see how good he is at that? She looked toward the audience. Listen to the words. Malcolm's face hardened slightly. Claire continued. He never says a mother is weak for protecting her children. She looked at him. He says personal stress affects executive judgment. A few people in the audience turned toward Malcolm. He never says frightened children are inconvenient. Claire's voice grew steadier. He calls them evidence of instability. Malcolm stepped into the aisle. This company cannot be managed through speeches about motherhood. Claire nodded. I agree. That stopped him. She looked toward Priya. Play the recording. Malcolm's face changed. Only for a second, but the room saw it. Priya connected Ethan's service file to the ballroom audio system. Rebecca had already confirmed that the file metadata and timestamps were preserved. A low mechanical hum filled the speakers. The sound of an elevator motor, metal vibration, a warning tone. Then Ethan's voice. Sir, I need you to remain away from the doors. Malcolm's recorded voice answered faintly. This is absurd. Several heads turned toward him. He remained standing. The recording continued. Mechanical noise. Ethan working. Then Malcolm's voice became clearer. No, not at the house. A pause. Too obvious. The ballroom was silent. School pickup is better. Claire did not move. Neither did Ethan. The recording played on. No names, no messages, just the photographs. Someone in the audience whispered. Malcolm's face lost its color. His recorded voice continued. She needs to believe she is being watched. A long pause. Then keep the school location. Claire closed her eyes for half a second. Wren reached for Harper's hand. Malcolm stepped forward. Turn that off. Nobody moved. He looked at Priya. I said turn it off. Priya did not even glance at him. The audio continued. Make the circles obvious this time. A chair moved somewhere near the center of the room. Then the line came. The line that changed the entire room. Once she loses control in public, the committee gets the proxy. Claire opened her eyes. Malcolm's recorded voice continued. We close Halcyon Friday. Silence. Not the polite silence of an audience waiting for a speaker, something heavier. The kind that follows a truth nobody can politely move around. Malcolm looked toward the exits, then toward the board. This recording was obtained without my consent. Rebecca Shaw had entered the ballroom during the playback. She stood near the aisle holding a folder. That is a question counsel can address. Malcolm turned. Rebecca continued. The recording was generated automatically during a commercial emergency service call under the contractor's documented liability policy. Malcolm pointed toward Ethan. He recorded a private conversation. Ethan finally stepped away from the column. I recorded an elevator repair. He walked several feet into the room. I was fixing the brake circuit while you were talking loud enough for me to hear every word. Malcolm's eyes narrowed. You expect this board to take the word of a mechanic? The sentence left his mouth before he could stop it. A small reaction moved through the crowd. Ethan looked at him. He had heard versions of that sentence his entire adult life, not always spoken. Sometimes it was a look at his boots, sometimes a side entrance. Sometimes a woman telling him catering belonged down the hall. Ethan did not raise his voice. I do not expect them to take my word. He looked toward Priya. That is why there is a recording. A few people laughed quietly, not because it was funny, because Malcolm's certainty had finally struck something that did not move. Malcolm looked toward Claire. You think one conversation proves I ordered those photographs? Claire did not answer. Priya did. No. She stepped onto the stage. It does not. Malcolm looked almost relieved. Priya placed her tablet beside the podium. That is why I checked the payments. The screen behind the stage changed. A financial document appeared. North Sound Advisory, Executive Consulting Services, Authorized Account, M. Pierce. Malcolm stared at it. Priya spoke clearly. North Sound Advisory received 4 payments from a Rowan Grid executive discretionary account during the last 6 weeks. Another document appeared. The authorization code belongs to Malcolm Pierce. Malcolm shook his head. North Sound has done legitimate work for this company. Yes. Priya changed the image. That is why the payment alone is not enough. Security footage appeared. A dark SUV parked across from a dance studio. A man sitting behind the wheel holding a camera. The image enlarged. The same man appeared in a second photograph entering North Sound Advisory's Seattle office. Date, time, location. Priya changed slides again, an invoice, surveillance consulting, field documentation. Claire stared at the language, so clean, so ordinary. That was what frightened her most. Her daughter's terror had been processed through an accounting department. Malcolm looked toward several board members. This proves a contractor photographed public locations. Rebecca stepped closer. A contractor paid through your discretionary account. I authorize hundreds of invoices. Priya answered. This one was approved from your personal executive login at 11:18 p.m. on March 7th. Malcolm's face tightened. That system can be accessed by staff. Priya nodded. Yes, another image appeared. Login authentication, device identification, location. Priya looked at him. The approval came from your registered company tablet while connected to your home network. Malcolm stopped speaking. Harper whispered beside Ethan. Is that bad? Ethan looked down. For him, Harper nodded. Yes. June leaned toward Sadie. I knew I did not like his hair, Sadie whispered. June. What Ethan almost smiled. Then Malcolm moved, not toward the exit, toward Claire. Do you understand what you are doing? Claire remained on the stage. Yes. You are turning an internal governance concern into a circus. No. Claire looked at the cameras. You did that. Malcolm pointed toward the audience. These people do not care about your children. Wren flinched at the sharpness in his voice. Malcolm continued. Investors do not care about your grief. The market does not care how tired you are. This board cares whether you can lead. Claire stepped closer to the edge of the stage. I know. Malcolm looked almost surprised. Claire continued. That is why you needed me to believe being a mother made me weaker. His expression changed. You needed me exhausted. She descended one step. You needed me afraid. Another. You needed my daughters frightened enough that I would cancel meetings, change schedules, disappear from public view. Malcolm's jaw tightened. Claire reached the floor. You took every reasonable response a mother could have to someone following her children and tried to turn it into evidence that she was incapable of leadership. Malcolm lowered his voice. You are making this personal. Claire looked at him. You photographed my 6-year-old daughters. The room became completely still. It was always personal. Malcolm's composure finally broke. You would have destroyed the company. Claire stared at him. By refusing Halcyon, by refusing reality. His voice grew louder. Markets consolidate, companies evolve, people lose jobs. That is business. 1,800 people, numbers. They have names. Exactly your problem. Malcolm pointed toward her. You always need the numbers to have faces. Claire said nothing. Malcolm looked around the room as though expecting someone to agree. You think this company survives because people feel good about it? Claire answered quietly. No, she looked at him. It survives because people build it. Malcolm laughed once. Sentiment. Payroll. Claire stepped closer. Engineers. Line crews. Field technicians. Dispatchers. People who know how things actually work. Her eyes moved toward Ethan. People you do not notice until something stops moving. Malcolm followed her gaze. His expression twisted. That man has been in your life for an hour. Claire looked back at him. And somehow he managed to care more about my children in that hour than you have in 4 years. That landed. Malcolm opened his mouth. A small voice cut through the room. Stop. Everyone turned. Wren stood beside Daniel. Her face had gone white again. Malcolm looked at her. Wren took one step backward, then another. Her breathing became fast. Claire moved immediately. Wren. But Ethan was closer. He did not touch her. He lowered himself to one knee several feet away. Hey. Wren stared at Malcolm. Her hands trembled. Ethan kept his voice low. You can look at me. She did not. That is okay. Her breathing grew sharper. People in the room began whispering. Ethan ignored them. "You do not have to make it stop." Wren's eyes moved toward him, just slightly. Ethan rested one hand on his own knee. "You can be scared right here." Wren looked at him. Malcolm shifted impatiently. Ethan did not take his eyes from her. "You do not have to run." Wren swallowed. Her breathing slowed enough for her to speak. "He is still here." "I know. What if he yells? Then he yells. What if I get scared? Then you get scared." Wren stared at him. Ethan's voice stayed calm. "And I stay right here." Something in her face changed. She took one step, then another. She reached Ethan and placed her hand inside his. He closed his fingers gently around it. No applause, no dramatic music. Just a frightened child discovering that fear did not always require escape. Claire watched from several feet away. Her eyes filled. This time she did not wipe them immediately. Malcolm looked around the room. He seemed to realize something before anyone said it. He had lost the audience. Not because Claire had looked strong, not because Ethan had looked heroic, because Malcolm had spent weeks trying to make ordinary human fear look shameful. And now, everyone in the room could see exactly what that had done to a 6-year-old child. Rebecca approached 2 hotel security officers. "Mr. Pierce is not to leave until Seattle Police completes an interview." Malcolm turned sharply. "You do not have the authority." A man in the first row stood. Thomas Keene, independent lead director of Rowan Grid. He looked toward Malcolm. "The board does." Malcolm stared at him. Thomas continued. "Effective immediately, you are suspended from all committee authority pending independent investigation." Several board members nodded. Malcolm looked toward them one by one. "You cannot be serious." Thomas's expression did not change. "The halcyon vote is frozen." Malcolm's face collapsed. Not dramatically, no shouting, no sudden confession, just a man realizing the room no longer moved when he pushed. 2 Seattle police officers entered through the side doors. They had been called by hotel security after Priya supplied the vendor records. One approached Malcolm. "Mr. Pierce, we need to speak with you." Malcolm looked at Claire. For a moment she saw the man beneath everything else. Not powerful, not untouchable, afraid. He leaned closer. "You think you won." Claire looked at him. "I think my daughters are safe enough to go home tonight." Malcolm waited. Claire did not give him anything else. That seemed to hurt him more. The officer asked him to step away. Malcolm straightened his jacket. Old instinct. Control the image, even now. He walked toward the side door with police and hotel security beside him. Nobody applauded. Claire was grateful for that. This was not a victory parade. Her children had been followed. Her marriage had been manipulated. A man she trusted inside her company had tried to use her daughters as leverage. There was nothing clean about it. The ballroom remained quiet until Malcolm disappeared through the door. Then sound slowly returned. Whispers, phones, chairs, people speaking into microphones. The mayor approached Claire. "We can postpone." Claire looked at him. He meant it kindly. That mattered. She looked toward her daughters, then toward the screen behind the stage. The city partnership presentation was still waiting. Clean energy expansion, 2,000 residential buildings, new apprenticeship programs, union labor commitments. Real work that had existed before Malcolm's plan and would exist after it. Claire took a breath. "No." The mayor raised his eyebrows. Claire wiped her face. "We came here to announce something." A small smile touched his face. "Yes, we did." Claire returned to the podium. She did not mention Malcolm again. For 12 minutes she spoke about grid resilience, neighborhood infrastructure, skilled jobs, and what Rowan Grid planned to build with the city. Her voice shook once, then steadied. Ethan stood near the back with Wren beside him. Harper leaned against one leg. June had somehow found another pastry. Sadie watched her mother with a look Ethan recognized. Pride. When the announcement ended, the applause came slowly, then filled the room. Claire stepped away from the podium. She did not look toward the board. She looked for her daughters. They ran to her. 4 small bodies crashed into her at once. Claire nearly lost her balance. Ethan moved instinctively, then stopped when he saw she had them. She laughed through tears. "Careful." Harper squeezed harder. "You did not break." Claire froze. She looked down at her. Harper's face was buried against her jacket. Claire closed her eyes. No. She kissed the top of Harper's head. I got scared. Sadie looked up. But you still did the speech. Claire nodded. Yes. Wren turned toward Ethan. He stood several feet away, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands. The crisis had ended, at least the immediate one. That meant he knew his part. Pack the tools, leave the building, go home. That was what he understood. Claire saw him reach for his bag. Ethan. He stopped. She walked toward him. The girls followed. Priya stayed behind to speak with Rebecca and the board. Claire held something in her hand. Her phone. She opened the old photograph again. Evelyn in Ethan's arms, smoke behind them, blood on his shirt, the scar fresh above his eye. Claire held it toward him. She spent months looking for you. Ethan looked at the picture. So you said. There is something I did not tell you. He looked up. Claire's voice softened. Evelyn used to talk about that night. Ethan listened. She said everyone kept calling you the man who saved her. Claire smiled faintly. She hated that description. Why, she said getting the doors open was your job. Ethan glanced down. That sounds right. Claire's eyes filled again. She said that was not why she remembered you. Ethan looked at her. Claire continued. She remembered you because after the doors opened, everybody started moving. Her voice weakened. Paramedics, security, police, reporters. She looked at the photograph, but she was still shaking. Ethan remembered. A hand around his wrist. A woman asking him not to leave. Claire looked at him. She said you stayed on the floor beside her until she could breathe normally. Ethan stared at the photograph. She did not know your name. Claire swallowed, but she knew you stayed. The words hit somewhere Ethan had protected for 5 years. He looked away. Lena's hospital room came back without permission. The last week. The chair beside her bed. Noah asleep against his chest. Lena too tired to speak. Ethan holding her hand because there was nothing left he could fix. He had stayed then, too, and when staying ended in a funeral, some part of him had decided that leaving first was safer. Claire did not know any of that, not all of it, but she saw something move across his face. She did not reach for him. She simply waited. Wren walked forward. She looked up at Ethan. Mr. Ethan? He cleared his throat. Yeah, you were supposed to be our pretend dad for 45 minutes. Ethan glanced at the clock on the ballroom wall. I think you owe me overtime, June gasped. We only have $6. 30 cents, Harper added. Right. Sadie folded her arms. You gave it back. That was before I understood your labor practices. Claire laughed, a tired, helpless laugh. It made Ethan smile. Harper reached into her small purse and pulled out the velvet coin pouch. She held it toward him. You did not finish. Ethan looked at it. I thought 45 minutes was the whole job. June shook her head. That was the trial. Claire covered her face with one hand. Please stop negotiating with him. Harper ignored her. We still need something. Ethan crouched. Wren looked at Claire first, then Ethan. Her voice became smaller. Can you stay until dinner? Ethan did not answer immediately. There were 100 easy reasons to say no. Noah was waiting. He needed poster board. He had work in the morning. His van was parked downstairs. These people had lawyers' drivers' security homes with rooms bigger than his apartment. The emergency was over. He had done what he knew how to do. He had gotten people unstuck. That was usually where Ethan left. Wren waited. Harper watched him with intense seriousness. Sadie said nothing. June still held half a pastry in one hand. Claire looked at Ethan. She did not ask him to stay. She did not use Evelyn. She did not use the girls. She did not tell him they needed him. She left the answer entirely his. Ethan reached into his work bag. He pulled out Noah's drawing. My dad gets people out. He stared at it, then folded it again. Dinner, Wren nodded. Just dinner. Ethan looked at Claire. What are you eating? Claire smiled. I have no idea. June answered immediately. Pizza. Harper objected. We had pizza Sunday. That was 3 days ago. Sadie looked at Ethan. They do this for a long time. Ethan stood. I have an 8-year-old who still needs poster board. Claire nodded. Then he should come too. Ethan looked at her. The words were simple. No pressure inside them. No promise, just an extra chair at a table. He took out his phone. Rachel is going to think I have lost my mind. Claire smiled. Have you? Ethan looked down at Wren. Her hand had found his again. Then at Harper clutching the velvet purse. At June with powdered sugar on her dress. At Sadie watching everyone like she was filing the moment away for later. Finally he looked at Claire. Her hair was no longer perfect. Her makeup had faded beneath her eyes. She looked nothing like the photograph on the Rowan Grid website. She looked tired, relieved, human. Ethan put the phone to his ear. Maybe a little. Claire's smile widened. Rachel answered on the fourth ring. Please tell me you bought poster board. Ethan looked at Claire and the girls. Not yet. Rachel sighed. Ethan, I need you to bring Noah downtown. Silence. Why Ethan considered the question. There was no normal answer. He looked at the four girls standing around him, then at their mother. Dinner. Rachel paused. With who? June leaned toward the phone and shouted. Us. Ethan closed his eyes. Rachel said nothing for 3 full seconds. Then I am going to need more information than that. Ethan looked at Claire. She was laughing again. He smiled. I know. Wren tugged his sleeve. Ethan looked down. You are staying. He covered the phone for a moment. Yeah. Wren waited. Ethan looked around the ballroom at the cameras being packed away, at the stage lights cooling, at the people returning slowly to their own lives. Then he looked back at her. I can stay for dinner. 3 weeks later, Ethan was back inside an elevator. That part of his life had not changed. He still woke before sunrise, still packed Noah's lunch, still drove the same tired service van through Tacoma traffic, still came home with grease beneath his fingernails and receipts folded into his pockets. Malcolm Pierce had been suspended from Rowan Grid while police and company investigators reviewed the surveillance payments, the service recording, and the archived communications with Andrew Lawson. The proposed Halcyon sale was frozen. Claire remained CEO. Nobody handed Ethan a fortune. Nobody gave him a title. Claire did offer him a senior facilities position. He declined. She looked almost offended. You are turning down dental insurance. I have dental insurance. Good dental insurance. Ethan smiled. I fix elevators. Claire stared at him for a second. Then she smiled too. I have noticed. A month later, Mercer Vertical Systems won a maintenance contract for 3 Rowan Grid properties through a competitive bid. Ethan made Claire promise she had not touched the process. She promised. He believed her. That mattered. What changed happened more quietly. Dinner became another dinner. Then Saturday breakfast. Then an afternoon at the aquarium because June had become convinced octopuses could recognize sadness. Noah met the girls properly on that first evening after the hotel. He stood in Claire's kitchen holding his backpack while 4 identical faces studied him like a committee. June spoke first. You are taller than your phone. Noah looked at Ethan. Can we leave? Ethan laughed. No. Harper assigned seats. Sadie asked Noah whether he liked soccer. June stole a piece of garlic bread from his plate. Wren said almost nothing until dessert. Then she asked, Do you miss your mom? The room went quiet. Claire looked toward Ethan. Ethan watched Noah. Noah lowered his fork. Every day. Wren nodded. I miss Aunt Evie every day. Noah looked at her, then pushed the last cookie on his plate toward her. Wren broke it in half and pushed one piece back. That was how the friendship started. Not with a speech, with a cookie. 2 months later, Ethan found Noah sitting alone on Claire's staircase while the girls argued upstairs over a board game. Ethan sat beside him. You okay? Noah nodded, then shook his head. Ethan waited. Noah picked at the seam of his jeans. If you like Claire and them a lot, do I become less yours? The question hit harder than Ethan expected. He turned toward his son. No. How do you know? Ethan thought for a moment, then put one arm around Noah's shoulders. Because loving you never felt like a room with only one chair. Noah looked at him. What does that mean? It means nobody has to get pushed out for somebody else to come in. Noah considered that, then leaned against him. Okay. A week later, Claire and Ethan went on their first real date. No children, no attorneys, no board members, no broken elevators. Just coffee at a small diner near the water. Claire arrived 7 minutes late and apologized 3 times. Ethan looked at the clock. You run a company and 4 6-year-olds. 7 minutes feels ambitious. She laughed. For the first time, they sat across from each other without an emergency giving them a reason to be there. Claire learned Ethan hated mushrooms. Ethan learned Claire secretly watched old cooking competitions after midnight. He learned she drank coffee too fast. She learned he stirred sugar into tea even when he claimed he did not like sweet things. It was ordinary. That was what made it dangerous. Ordinary things were easy to want, and Ethan had spent 5 years trying not to want anything he could lose. By spring, Claire noticed him pulling away. He answered texts later, left dinners earlier, found reasons not to stay overnight when Noah was already asleep upstairs. One evening, Claire stopped him at the front door. You keep one hand on the exit. Ethan looked at her. I have work early. That is not what I mean. He said nothing. Claire crossed her arms. I do not need you to promise forever. Ethan looked down. But I will not build a life around a man who is always preparing to disappear. The words stayed with him all the way home. That night, Noah found Lena's wooden box while looking for a charger. This time, Ethan did not close it. They sat on the living room floor together. Noah lifted the old hospital bracelet, the necklace, the photograph, then the folded card. He handed it to Ethan. You never read this one. Ethan stared at it. Lena's handwriting leaned slightly to the right. He opened the card. You have always known how to stay when things are hard. Do not let losing me teach you the wrong lesson. Ethan read it twice, then a third time. Noah did not say anything when his father started crying. He just moved closer. Ethan put one arm around him. For the first time in years, grief did not feel like a door closing. It felt like something opening. 6 months after the afternoon at the Cascadia Grand winter rain returned to Seattle. Claire's house no longer looked perfect. There were 5 lunchboxes near the kitchen. Noah's shoes sat beside Harper's. June had taped one of his drawings to the refrigerator. Ethan's work jacket hung beside Claire's coat often enough that nobody mentioned it anymore. That evening, the children decorated a Christmas tree. Harper climbed onto a chair holding the silver star folded from the gum wrapper she had offered Ethan as payment on the first day. Claire looked up. You kept that, Harper looked offended. Of course, June studied it. It is worth more now. Ethan raised an eyebrow. How much, June thought carefully. At least $8. Noah laughed. So you made a profit. Later, after the children had fallen asleep across couches and blankets, Claire stood beside the window looking down at the wet city lights. Ethan joined her. She rested her head against his shoulder. Do you remember the first thing Harper said to you? Ethan smiled. She tried to hire me. You were supposed to pretend for 45 minutes. He looked across the room. Noah asleep beside Wren, June curled beneath Ethan's old work jacket, Harper and Sadie near the tree. Then he looked at Claire. I was never very good at leaving on time. Claire reached for his hand. This time, Ethan held on. The next morning he was making pancakes when Harper walked into the kitchen carrying the old velvet coin purse. She placed it beside the stove. Coins rattled inside. Ethan looked at it. What is this refund? For what? Wren looked up from the table. You do not have to pretend anymore. The kitchen went quiet. Ethan turned. Claire stood near the coffee machine. Noah sat between June and Sadie. Harper waited with her arms folded. Ethan looked at his son first. Noah smiled. Then Ethan looked at the girls. Finally, Claire. He placed the spatula on the counter. No. Wren's face fell for half a second. Then Ethan smiled. I guess I do not. June screamed. Harper threw both arms around him. The first pancake burned. Nobody cared. Outside rain moved down the windows. Inside, 6 voices filled the kitchen at once. For years, Ethan believed his job was simple. Open the doors, get people through safely, then leave. He had been wrong about the last part. Some doors were meant to stay open,